What's going on, everybody? I hope everybody is doing well, and I wanted to share with you today about workout nutrition and intra-workout nutrition. And I know that I have a little bit of a presentation up because I wanted to go through today about intra-workout nutrition. So, what kind of intra-workout nutrition is? You have pre-workout nutrition, you have post-workout nutrition, and you also have intra-workout nutrition, which may be beneficial for people training in long duration sports that contain up to probably 1 to 2 hours. Or look, you have the high rise now and things like high rocks. You have football, soccer, you have boxing, MMA. You've got and like a lot of people actually train weight training for like anywhere up to 2 hours, and you may get the benefits of these if you actually apply the science to practice. So that's a thing that we do want to discuss today. So I wanted to break this down, and I just wanted to begin with understanding that, like, do you need to actually eat during your workout, or do you not? That's basically what we want to do. Because like the short answer really is that probably not, because you probably wonder a lot, like whether you need a sports drink, whether you need a banana, whether you need some kind of fancy intra-workout supplement that you're not doing. Like, I'm just going to try to explain all of that to you here and just show you what I've read in the science. Now, I probably would have read a lot more research papers than the one in front of you, but if any is weird to go and read a research paper so I can just save you time, maybe looking into this. It's a meta-analysis and meta-regression, which went through all the research of 100 plus studies, and it basically like the ergogenic effects of acute carbohydrate feeding on endurance performance. So it just means that like when adding extra carbohydrates, does it actually improve human performance? That's the most simplest thing. So before we get into specifics, I want to make sure that all of this, that you get everything that you want out of this session. I want to find out how long you're training and explain that, why it's important to actually have carbohydrates or what to have for your workouts before training too. So, the first thing is that like you got to ask yourself this from a physiology: why fuel during training, and why is it important to fuel during training? So when you exercise in intensities anywhere from probably moderate to high intensity exercise, now also in low intensity too, you use carbohydrates also, right? Your body just doesn't go through this like, I'm using carbs, I'm using fat, I'm using carbs. Like, metabolic flexibility is true, like meaning that, and that's from Mike T. Nelson's work, you can see that you can use carbohydrates and fats for fuel. But let's just not go on that today, and just let's focus on a few things that you may learn. Don't get scared of this diagram. I'm going to explain this to you simply, alright? So basically, I know you're probably thinking carbohydrates are bad, but how are carbohydrates bad? I've never really seen it. So if you look into this, right, you've got glucose, alright? So think of glucose. Our body can only use 60 grams of glucose per hour, and the transporter is SGLT1 that helps get glucose into the muscles. Alright. Fructose is transported in a different way inside of your body through a GLUT5, which these are like transporters in our gut that transport carbohydrates in the body. Alright. Now, Asker Jukendrup, out of My Sport Science, done research with many others and showed that like when you combine glucose and fructose together, you can use 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, right? Because what happens is the SGLT1 pathway, and you also have the GLUT4 pathway too, and the GLUT5 pathway, when they work together, you can use more carbohydrates in an hour of what you are doing. So these are things to consider for your training before anything else. To consider like, what is the actual intensity of your training? How long is that training session actually going on for? because that can be very, very important for you to actually look into. Is your training sessions under 60 minutes? Maybe none of this matters. Is your training sessions between 60 to 120 minutes? Maybe you would get a performance benefit from what we're about to speak about. But even if your sessions were 60 minutes, all this stuff definitely still can matter. So, and it can come down to like what time you're eating throughout the day. Like, is your energy balance in check throughout a 24-hour period? Is your protein in check? Is your carbohydrates and fats in check? Before even looking into all these things, that's one of the most key components. Is, are you in an energy balance state throughout the day, throughout the week? And then inside of an energy deficit, these may come into more consideration to be able to maintain exercise performance, even improve exercise performance, because what's known is that when you are in an energy deficit state, that there's a chance that you will decrease in what's called muscle protein synthesis the longer you are in an energy deficit. Let's get off the specifics, and here's a little few tips I'll give you right now. You can also periodise your carbohydrates over a week if you wanted, but again, I wouldn't really look too deep into this, guys. I really wouldn't. I'd be looking at like, are we getting enough in throughout the day? And high carbohydrate days may improve days that you're training probably 2 times a day on. They may help with longer duration or multiple sessions, as I have written down here, and it may come into consideration to use a combination of glucose and fructose, and making sure that it's tolerable on your gut microbiota. A lot of questions come around of carbohydrate types, so I got this, and I had to give this to a lot of clients just to simplify it. So think of like green, yellow and red, right? So red is for high GI carbohydrates, which are just digested a lot more rapidly, meaning that like when you digest them, they're absorbed very, very well, and they might be very beneficial to put around your pre-workout if even needed, or even around your post-workout. Make sense? But the thing is that when you eat a lot of these, there's a high possibility that your blood glucose will rise, and your blood glucose will then drop probably again throughout the day. And this is why we probably crave, right? So it's not that they're bad, it's just that a lot of these are probably just digested more rapidly and give us a high spike in blood glucose. Okay? So then you have medium GI. GI just means glycemic index. It's just the rate at which carbohydrates reach the blood. So basically you have oat granola, you have instant oats, Frosties. These are kind of medium GI, as you can see. Again, all these foods that I'm writing up here are fine inside of like good flexible approach to nutrition, and especially like using them as athletes, or if you're doing 2 times a day trainings. In most places like these foods are fine. Then we know that beetroot has massive performance benefits from the scientific evidence, so that's another thing. Then looking into low GI, excuse me, you have porridge oats, you have ready break, all bran, rolled oats, some certain breads, sourdough. You have wheat tortillas, pizzas, white pastas, macaroni and cheese. Like, you can get kind of healthy forms of these, like with good macros that have like macaroni. Like, a lot of it would be a low GI carbohydrates. When you mix it with vegetables, you mix it with meat, yams, brown rice, egg noodles. Then down the bottom you have vegetables, which are very, very low GI. And that's why a lot of the time, not just with the fibre, but vegetables keep you very, very fuller. But if you wanted to maximise your training, you probably wouldn't want to be having vegetables around your workout if you're looking to absorb carbohydrates more rapidly. That's all. Don't look too deep into it, but like usually when you have when you have lower GI, they just digest it a lot more slower. Alright. Let's move on to the next topic. I got this infographic from Mike Gleason. I hope I don't get into trouble over it and cause any problems, but I've been studying Mike Gleason for years. I've read all his books, and I'd highly recommend that you study him too if you wanted. He's one of the smartest nutritionists and training performers in the world, and especially in the field of football. Right? And he had the 4 P's of performance nutrition, which I use a lot with clients and I use a lot with people, just to simplify it. So the first P is pre-fuel. So glycogen availability. So remember I was telling you, glycogen is stored form of carbohydrates, okay? And when we eat it as well, we use glycogen in moderate and high intensity exercise, right? So think of this: sufficient energy and carbohydrate intake for 24 to 36 hours to elevate liver and muscle glycogen stores before an event. So basically, like, our body also stores glycogen in our liver and also in our muscles too. And one of the key things is in football players and boxers and anybody is to pre-fuel your event beforehand, so you have carbohydrate availability. Now let's stay on this and let's go back to what I said at the start. Remember I was telling you that, see this like pre-workout and post-workout and stuff like that, like if you have full glycogen stores, meaning you're eating enough carbohydrates, like you may not need a pre-workout depending on what you're doing, alright? Makes sense, like, because that could also force you to eat more calories than what you're desired to achieve your goals. You might have body composition goals and you might be following all these scientific stuff but not doing them with specificity to you. Makes sense? And personalizing that to you, which I didn't copy that. It's actually on this as well. Look, personalize. I didn't even see that. Then you have prepare. So are you having sufficient fluid intake to become fully hydrated at least 1 hour before the event? Consider pre-event dietary ergogenics and plan in event to carbohydrate and fluid intake strategies, because they do help delay fatigue. When you delay fatigue, you probably improve performance. So think of this, ergogenics will be like what we're going to discuss inside of this, if they're even necessary or specific to you. Make sense? And then periodize is number 4, strategic nutrition interventions. This would be like, how do you periodize nutrition if needed? For an example, let's say you're an individual that has probably 3 to 4 weight training sessions a week, and then you might go doing high rocks 2 to 3 times a week, and then, or you might go and do a boxing event, you might go and do whatever sport you do. We just say sport for now, okay? It doesn't really matter whether it's paddle, anything, jiu-jitsu, and you have these events over a week, right? You may look, the first principle I'd look into is like, what is my actual energy intake over a week to meet my performance goals? And then you may strategically plan that around your week. So, for example, you might have 2 training sessions on a Monday. You might have, on them 2 training sessions, you might have higher carbohydrate days on them training sessions. On the next day, you may have 1 training session, you might have a moderate carbohydrate day, and then you might have a day off on the Wednesday, you might have an easy day, you might even have lower carbohydrates, or even another moderate carbohydrate day, because carbohydrates also help improve recovery, right? And they also speed up recovery a lot more too, okay? Especially on days off. So it just depends on how you actually periodize it, over a week or over days. Personalized means specific to you, a tailored nutrition and supplement plan that provides effective nutrition for the person depending on your phenotype, your genotype, which means specific to you, which is based on you, then your sex, your age, your goals, your fitness, body mass, sweat rate, biomarkers, all that, if even necessary, specific to you. So how do we personalize a specific nutrition protocol specific to you and your goals and what you're looking to achieve, that you can also be adherent to and consistent to over the duration of time? Makes sense? So when I look into this, this is from Oscar Yukendrop, who was a partner of Mike Gleason, and I studied this fella very a lot in my days and still do to this day. And he was also a very well respected individual in the Institute of Performance Nutrition, and which I've done a postgraduate diploma, and I'm going to go on and do a master's degree with now, and also in my master's degree in Real Madrid University of Universidad Europea, where he was a professor there. And also I've read all of his books and read his new book. Well, I didn't read it all, I'm halfway through it, and I'd highly suggest that you read them too. But let's get into this. So the beverage hydration mixes this, right? So think of this. One just means that basically greater than or less than, all right? It just really means how our body retains more fluid than plain water. Makes sense? So when you take in plain water, it doesn't measure. It's probably not like fluid retention is. Well, fluid retention is 1.0 on still water. But when you're taking things like coffee, you probably lose a little bit of water, as you probably know, and it don't really maintain the hydration of coffee. You don't really maintain all the fluids. So when we look into an oral rehydration solution, usually these would be like our sports drinks. A lot of these would contain sodium, glucose, and they would have excellent fluid retention. Makes sense? So when we drink these throughout the days, they're able to retain fluids. But like, so does skim milk. Skim milk has excellent fluid retention, but so does whole milk also. Just the only thing that I'd look into with like milk is sometimes milk can slow gastric emptying, alright? And it also increases fluid retention. And if someone is lactose intolerant, I'd probably get a test for that, because I used to think I was lactose intolerant, and a lot of people do. And a lot of it is, in my opinion, is placebo in me. It's a lot of it is mental and thinking that, like, again, you might be different. I'm not speaking to you, but I'd look into it because the benefits that we can get from milk. And orange juice usually contains carbohydrates, potassium. Remember, potassium is very, very important for hydration and maintaining fluids. Make sense? So the thing about gastric emptying is, if we want to be able to maximize, I don't like using them words, maximize, sorry, if we want to be able to get the most out of our higher carbohydrate sessions before the training session, the last thing we want is gut issues. Because do you know the way like GLPs, you probably hear of the rise in peptides, a lot of them slow gastric emptying. Makes sense? So, because the more slower you are to gastric empty, the more full you are. Because if you can increase gastric emptying and find the carbohydrates and the fluids that you can do, that's why it's very, very important to personalize this specific to you. Because then you're not going to get any stomach cramps, vomiting, digestion issues. Because, like, let's say, for example, you drink whole milk 30 minutes before a session, right? And you feel like bloated and you feel like nausea and stuff like that. You might blame the milk. Makes sense? Oh, I'm never drinking milk again. Get me into the dairy is bad market. Makes sense? Or the crowds. You know all them crowds on the internet. And then all of a sudden, rather than like saying to yourself, like it's not actually the dairy. Maybe if I had this for breakfast and then trained a couple of hours later, I'd allow it to digest well. Makes sense? Rather than like getting it, like, I mean, it's probably better to get more smarter with what the nutrition that you're consuming and around your workouts are. Makes sense? Rather than taking in stuff that's probably causing digestive issues and doing it right around your workouts. Makes sense? Now, I got this all from the science, and again, this is adapted from Ramas and Campo et al. 2023. I also have a handout of this. If any of you want a copy, feel free to drop me a message. And I'm actually in the process of writing a book, so I'm going to be giving that away to everybody. Just the reason the book isn't ready is because I'm going to take my time on the book, because I want to make sure that I get everything in it specific to an individual. Number one is the effect of intra-workout nutrition is what we would be looking at. The effects of intra-workout nutrition, right? So what I would take from this is that I'm just going down to truth to make sure I have all of this, because then I'm going to go what to eat. If you have a session that is below 60 minutes with, like, probably the recommendation is that water is sufficient for most well-fed people. And when I mean well-fed, it's just throughout the day, you could probably have just water. You could probably have 20 grams of carbohydrates to get a benefit from it too. But you don't have to really, really overthink this if you're in an energy balanced state. Makes sense? Like, so that's what you want to look at, is below 60 minutes. Because like, there's things we can look into. Are we actually training at an exercise intensity? Are we training specifically with a good rate of perceived exertion? And what I mean is our intensity in our weight training sessions, strength sessions, actually in a good intensity state, probably between 70 to 90%. And the other question I might ask is, are you actually with your training programs progressively overloading? Now, I want to just explain that word too, because it gets used a lot, but I want you to understand it. Is your weight training sessions or your strength sessions improving week to week with the repetitions, the weight on the bar? Makes sense, because this is where, if that wasn't happening, and say you were not tracking your training, or you weren't training with intensities, especially also in cardiovascular work, are you actually would you actually need that pre-workout nutrition that could also be leading to weight gain if you're in an energy balanced state? This is what I'm just trying to say. It just, again, I'll answer any questions on that too, because if I end up answering too many here, we'll end up here for hours. Thank you very much. 60 to 120 minutes would be there's a high chance we can get a moderate improvement in endurance with intra-workout carbohydrates. I would consider the 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates an hour, and I'm going to show you them options. And it might, for example, if you look into this, these are some of the stuff. So you might have, let's say you might have a carbohydrate powder, you might have a sports drink you can bring in your bag, you might have an energy gel, you could even use a bag of jellies, a bag of gummies, candies, lollies. I know they call them lollies in Australia and gummies in different parts of the world. I just know from living in them places, we all have different names. You might even have whole foods like dates, raisins. I know dates have a lot of fibre, but if your training sessions are going quite high for 60 to 120 minutes, because think about it, you want to be able to not cause any GI discomfort either. Make sense? So you may just have I'd say a sports drink is fine, or an energy gel, or you might even have electrolyte tablets in the bag. But again, I wouldn't go out and start buying all this stuff unless we get locked in with the actual training program. Remember taking into even consideration the 4 P's. Are we actually training consistently? 100 to 180 minutes. I've had a lot of people train with this, doing 100-mile runs and 100-kilometer runs, and even some fighters that train a lot. And you may get the 60 to 90 grams of recommendation an hour. 180 minutes, I would definitely recommend up to 90 grams an hour using the glucose and fructose blends. How do you do that, Ray? So think of this, right? If we look into the glucose and fructose, let's say you wanted to maximize the 60 to 90 grams, all right? Let's say you had something like an energy gel, 30 grams, sports drink, 30 to 60 grams, couple of gummies, candies, they're digested well, you'll probably be able to maximize the 60 to 90 grams. Makes sense? Because a lot of these would have a combination of fructose and glucose inside of them. You might even have it might be piece of fruit, dried fruit, it may be energy gel, couple of sports drink. Sports drink will also help us with electrolytes. It'll also help us hydrate. It's easy to digest and it's very, very convenient. Same with the energy gel. Easy to carry, quick absorption, and very, very easy to do. The gummies and the candies may be they're a little bit more palatable, meaning we can easily overeat them. That's the only thing that we could do with them. But again, if you are training with intensities and your training is actually getting you results, as I spoke about, there's nothing that you should worry about using these recommendations. You can just get a carbohydrate powder if you wanted. A lot of them sell them. I'd probably rather eat the gummies myself than the sports drinks. And a lot of the times I do this, to be fair. So, I hope I'm not over burning you out. Stay with me. We got 2 more slides. So think of this. Practical recommendations by training type. Again, adopted from the research. Strength training 45 to 60 minutes. Not really required in an energy balance state. Because energy balance also happens from the day before. You're kind of and then in a fasted state, you'll probably be able to do strength training too. If you are fasted, as I had a second ago, above 60 minutes, you may do 20 to 40 grams an hour. Menno Henselmans done a great paper on this in Energy Balance States, saying that we can get like good performance outcomes at 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrates before we actually train. And again, that might be you waking up in the morning having a sports drink. I don't know whether you want to have gummies in the first thing in the morning, but you can. But like with that, I don't know, if I eat gummies, I'll probably end up craving stuff like that all day from the hyper palatable foods. I think dates, bananas, pre-workout nutrition smoothie is quite good, especially if you're in a rush. I coach a lot of busy parents, but sometimes you might just go and do a fast and have an electrolyte drink too, you know, because a lot of time you'd have carbohydrate availability in you. Hypertrophy, for anyone that knows, is just like muscle building workouts, which are quite like endurance based too, like you're using a lot of the carbohydrate system. Again, it's usually unnecessary. If you're training 60 to 90 minutes, the 20 to 40 gram an hour, again, I'd probably just look into this one too. But remember, are we in an energy balanced state? You might be still getting benefits out of fasting. You might be eating well throughout the weeks. Endurance, anywhere below 60. I'd probably recommend a protein serving for this, for our immune system, based on like people like Mike Leeson, I think, would quite recommend that. That's where I learned it, that like, you know, when you do endurance-based exercises, like you can improve your cardiovascular system. So endurance-based, like you don't have to, alright. But I'd probably strongly recommend myself that like if you had a protein drink before that, it would help support the immune system, alright, for your cardiovascular work, but probably not that much needed either. But that's all I would. It's just something to consider. I'm not speaking in absolutes. Then you have endurance 60 to 120 minutes. Again, you'd well be able to do the 30 to 60 grams an hour, and also looking into hydration. I think what works well here is sports drinks, electrolyte drinks, all stuff like that can work quite well. Endurance above 120 minutes, strongly recommended. You could maximize the 60 to 90 grams an hour. You could also maximize I'm using them words again, sorry. You could also get benefits from 60 to 90 grams an hour in the 60. You can also get that in the 60 minutes throughout the day too. Like, you can still use these recommendations in all that I'm saying. But again, these can come down to looking into your daily caloric intake and your goals, where you'll be able to probably benefit more and be able to improve body composition too, you know. HIIT, high intensity interval training, or CrossFit, that would be kind of like high rocks as well, and stuff like that, like them kind of workouts that you're going to, like body pump classes, going to the gym. Again, you could consider the 30 to 60 grams an hour, which is optional. So when should you consider intra-workout nutrition? Is the session longer than 60 minutes? Longer sessions increase carbohydrate requirements. So that's what we need to consider. So carbohydrate demands increase. Training fasted or in a calorie deficit. Lower glycogen increases the potential benefit of needing more carbohydrates. In a calorie deficit, I even think using the 20 to 40 grams to improve training performance, especially with weight training too, so we can try our best to be able to reverse the down of muscle protein synthesis in training, alright? Higher volume or near failure training would so why it matters, there's a greater training stress increases fuel demand. So when you do higher volume trainings or near failure training, the demand of fuel increases and stress increases too. So we want to be able to delay fatigue, and we want to be able to train near enough higher volumes and higher amount of training. So what that would look like, let's say over a week you might be doing 10 to 15 sets, or if not more, and they're exercise sets that are progressive, that are actually train that intensity. I'd highly suggest using your workout nutrition and spreading your meals throughout the day. Again, ask me any questions on that, because that's very, very individualized to an individual. And this is where it really matters. More than 3 to 4 hours since your last meal, your blood glucose may be lower before training, so you may benefit from having the pre-workout nutrition before we go into it and what I actually discuss in this. You're an older athlete, an injured athlete, or training multiple times a day. Additional carbohydrates and sometimes proteins may support performance and recovery. There's a lot of good science on carbohydrates and proteins for recovery, injured individuals, older athletes. It's very, very specific and individualized to you. So, fuel, hydrate, perform. Intra-workout nutrition is the most useful for longer sessions than 60 minutes, high intensity, or when training fasted or in a calorie deficit. So have a little look at this. Our overall conclusion is sports drinks, usually carbohydrate electrolyte beverages. A lot of them contain electrolytes right now. So the typical carbs an hour in these is 30 to 60 grams, which varies by the product. The pros are, as I have written up here, that they're easy to digest, they're better for hydration and being able to retain water and hydrate and electrolytes, and they're very, very convenient. The considerations would be that they are higher in sugar concentrations and that can cause probably GI discomfort in some individuals. Looking into the sodium content of them also, are we getting excessive amount of sodium over a day, which can also lead to negative impacts too. Energy gels, 20 to 30 grams a lot of them contain. They're high in carbohydrates and small volume. Now this is the consideration then, and I've kind of noticed it in practice as well, that they may cause GI distress if high concentration. So, and a lot of them need water too with them to be able to also improve hydration and retention of water, or retention of fluid, sorry. They are also very, very quick absorbed and easy to carry. Chews, gums, candies, 20 to 30 grams per serve. Easy to eat, variety of flavours, and can be very more palatable. Some of them contain fat, fibre or protein, which can slow digestion with intra-workout nutrition. Makes sense? So look into ones that have lower fat content, lower protein and lower fibre. Get me to be able to get them absorbed and readily available if you're using them for that purpose. Whole foods, you have real food like bananas, raisins, dates. They contain additional nutrients. They can be gentler on the stomach. So meaning like fruits are quite easily digested, I believe. And they're lower carb density, like meaning they haven't got a lot of carbohydrates in them either. Like meaning they're quite lower in calories too. But dates are very, very high in calories. I'd look into that, and so are raisins and dried fruit. Sometimes the higher fibre content could cause GI discomfort. Dates do contain a lot of fibre, I'm aware of that, and so do figs. And they're less practical at high intensities. What does that mean? Like, it's kind of probably hard to eat this amount of stuff at high intensities when you're running, or when you're on a bike, or when you're in the middle of a boxing session or a high rock session, that the drink and the energy gel might be quick and fast. Makes sense? Carbohydrate powder, again, highly customizable, specific when you look at it. It's quite cost effective and can reach higher carbohydrate intake simply, and especially if you get a good tasting one. Needs mixing and planning, that's the considerations, and can have the high concentrations may cause GI issues. But electrolyte tablets, 0 grams of carbs, they support hydration, replace key electrolytes. I think sometimes these electrolyte tablets, you can get them in good flavours, and the taste becomes palatable and can be more motivated to drink more water. Do you ever get that? Like, you start drinking more water because the taste of them, then overall you think it's the electrolytes, but you're probably improving your hydration throughout the day and probably eating less because that taste, and you're probably cutting out the sugary drinks. Makes sense? So sometimes we have to be careful of that, because you might, let's say you love blue cola bottle candies or something like that, and you go and get a blue cola bottle electrolyte drink and it has no calories. You start drinking more of it, you're more motivated, and you might put it in the fridge, you might put ice in it, you might come up with your own creativity, you know. So the considerations would be no carbohydrate use and check the sodium content. I hope this added benefits to everybody. I really appreciate you looking at it, and this is my understanding of pre-workout nutrition, and this is exactly what I'm doing with my pre-workout nutrition. This is where I am. If any of you want to know me, I give a lot of stuff here on Ray McKenna on my Facebook every day, and it's quite good. I also have an Instagram if you ever wanted to follow me, and I give away stuff. But I'll answer all your questions too. Drop me a message anytime you want, and I'll do my best to answer you. And drop it in the comments too, and I hope you got a lot of help from this. Feel free, I'll give you any handouts that's needed. And thank you very much for watching the video.